The scream that shattered the morning silence was not human. It was pure terror, raw and primal, echoing off every house in Willowbrook Estates. I watched from my kitchen window as Corinne Pemberton ran down Maple Street in her pink bathrobe, arms flailing like a madwoman, shrieking at the top of her lungs. Behind her, coiled peacefully on her pristine driveway, was 3 feet of beautiful ball python named Samson. The Amazon box lay torn open beside him, cardboard scattered like confetti across her perfect lawn. My neighbors poured out of their houses, coffee mugs in hand, trying to understand why the most feared woman in our HOA was having a complete mental breakdown at 7 in the morning. They had no idea that for the past 6 months, this woman had been stealing our packages. They had no idea that the police would not help us. They had no idea that sometimes justice comes with fangs. But they were about to learn everything. 3 months earlier, I thought I had found paradise. Willowbrook Estates stretched before me like a suburban dream, with tree-lined streets that curved gently past identical Tudor-style homes. Each lawn was perfectly manicured, each mailbox stood at regulation height, each driveway was pressure-washed to spotless perfection. I had escaped the chaos of city living for this. No more sirens at 3 in the morning. No more wondering if my car would still have windows when I woke up. Just peace, quiet, and neighbors who actually cared about their community. The moving truck had barely pulled away when she appeared. Corinne Pemberton stood 5 feet 4 inches of pure suburban authority, clipboard in one hand, measuring tape in the other. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun that seemed to stretch her face into a permanent expression of disapproval. She knocked on my door with the confidence of someone who owned the entire neighborhood. When I opened it, she smiled the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "Welcome to Willowbrook Estates," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I am Corinne Pemberton, head of the Homeowners Association Compliance Committee. I wanted to personally ensure you understand our community standards." She handed me a thick packet of papers, rules and regulations, lawn care requirements, paint color specifications, holiday decoration guidelines. The list went on for 37 pages. "Your mailbox appears to be 1 inch above regulation height," she continued, making a note on her clipboard. "And that garden gnome near your front steps will need to be removed. We do not allow decorative lawn ornaments that could be considered whimsical or frivolous." I looked at my innocent garden gnome, a housewarming gift from my mother. He held a tiny fishing pole and wore a cheerful red hat. Apparently, cheerfulness was against HOA regulations. "I will give you 1 week to make these corrections," Corinne said, already walking away. "Failure to comply results in fines that start at $50 and increase weekly until resolved." I watched her march down my driveway, measuring tape swinging from her belt like a weapon. She stopped at each neighbor's house, taking notes, measuring things, searching for violations with the dedication of a detective hunting criminals. That night, I joined the Willowbrook Estates community WhatsApp group. My phone immediately exploded with notifications. Corinne posted constantly. Photos of brown spots on lawns. Complaints about trash cans left out 30 minutes past pickup time. Warnings about children's bicycles parked in driveways instead of garages. The other residents responded with apologetic messages and promises to fix whatever minor infraction had caught Corinne's attention. Nobody ever argued. Nobody ever pushed back. They just accepted her authority like she was some kind of suburban dictator. I should have recognized the warning signs then. The way neighbors avoided eye contact when Corinne was around. The way conversations stopped when she approached. The way everyone seemed to walk on eggshells, terrified of attracting her attention. But I was still naive. I still believed that following the rules would be enough. I still thought that Corinne Pemberton was just an overzealous neighbor who cared about property values. I had no idea that I was living next door to a thief. The first package disappeared on a Tuesday morning in October. I had ordered a birthday gift for my mother, a beautiful silk scarf that I had been planning for weeks. The tracking information showed it had been delivered at 10:23 a.m., placed on my front porch by the regular Amazon driver. When I got home from work at 6, there was nothing there. I checked the tracking again, delivered, signed for by resident, but I had not signed for anything, and there was no package anywhere on my property. I called Amazon customer service. The representative was polite but unhelpful. The GPS coordinates showed the package had been delivered to my address. The driver had taken a photo of it sitting on my front porch. There was nothing more they could do except offer to send a replacement. The next morning, Corinne appeared at my door with a casserole dish and that same fake smile. "I heard you had some trouble with a missing package," she said, somehow managing to sound both concerned and smug at the same time. "This neighborhood has been having issues with porch pirates. People from outside the community, you understand. They drive through looking for easy targets." She leaned closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing state secrets. "I make it my business to keep an eye on things during the day. Most of us work from home or are retired, so we can watch out for each other. I would be happy to accept your packages when you are not home, for security purposes, of course." Something about her offer made my skin crawl, but I thanked her politely and said I would consider it. 2 weeks later, it happened again. This time it was an expensive pair of wireless headphones, a birthday gift for myself. The tracking showed delivery at 2:15 p.m. I was in back-to-back meetings and could not check my porch until evening. Gone again. This time I was angry. I called the delivery company directly, demanding to speak with the driver who had made the delivery. After 20 minutes on hold, they transferred me to a supervisor who explained that the driver remembered the delivery clearly. He had placed the package on my front porch, taken the required photo, and moved on to his next stop. "Sir," the supervisor said, "we have had several similar reports from your neighborhood recently. You might want to consider having packages delivered to your workplace or installing a security camera." A security camera, of course. Why had I not thought of that earlier? I spent the weekend researching home security systems. Ring doorbells, motion-activated cameras, full surveillance setups. I settled on a high-definition camera system with night vision and cloud storage. If someone was stealing my packages, I was going to catch them in the act. The installation took most of Saturday. I mounted cameras at 3 angles around my front porch, ensuring complete coverage of anyone who approached my door. The system sent alerts directly to my phone whenever motion was detected. Monday morning, my phone buzzed with a text message from Corinne. "I noticed you installed surveillance equipment on your property. Please be advised that HOA regulations require written approval for any exterior modifications, including security devices. The cameras may also violate neighborhood privacy expectations. I will be filing a formal complaint with the board." I stared at the message in disbelief. She was complaining about security cameras installed on my own property to protect my own belongings. The audacity was breathtaking. That evening, I attended my first HOA board meeting. The community center was packed with residents, most of whom looked like they would rather be anywhere else. Corinne sat at the front table with 4 other board members, a stack of violation notices piled in front of her like ammunition. When they called for new business, I stood up. "I would like to address the recent package theft issues in our neighborhood," I said. "Multiple residents have reported missing deliveries, and I believe we need to take action to protect our community." Corinne's face darkened. She shuffled through her papers and pulled out a folder with my name on it. "The real issue," she said, her voice sharp and accusatory, "is residents who install unauthorized surveillance equipment without proper permits. These devices create privacy concerns and violate our community aesthetic standards." She held up photos of my security cameras, printed in full color like evidence in a criminal trial. I motioned that all surveillance equipment be removed immediately, or the homeowner will face daily fines until compliance is achieved. The motion passed 4-1. I was not even allowed to vote on my own surveillance system. Walking back to my car, I felt the eyes of the entire neighborhood on me. Corinne had just painted me as the problem, the troublemaker who was disrupting their perfect community with my paranoid security measures. But those cameras were about to reveal the truth about Corinne Pemberton. The notification came at 9:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Motion detected on front porch. I was in a client meeting when my phone buzzed, but something made me excuse myself and check the live feed. What I saw made my blood boil. Corinne Pemberton was walking up my driveway like she owned the place. She moved with casual confidence, no rushing, no looking over her shoulder. This was clearly routine for her. A package sat on my front porch. It had been delivered 20 minutes earlier while I was in meetings. Corinne approached it slowly, her head turning left and right to check for witnesses. Then she bent down, picked up my package, and tucked it under her arm like she was collecting her own mail. She walked back down my driveway at the same leisurely pace, crossed the street, and disappeared into her own house. I had her. Crystal clear, high-definition video of Corinne Pemberton stealing my package in broad daylight. My hands were shaking as I saved the footage to my phone and laptop. Then I called my office and told them I would be working from home for the rest of the day. I needed to confront this woman immediately. The package she had stolen contained a birthday gift for my daughter. A custom jewelry box I had ordered weeks in advance, engraved with her name and birth date. It was irreplaceable and expensive. I printed screenshots from the security footage, clear images showing Corinne's face as she bent down to steal from me. Then I walked across the street and knocked on her door. She answered wearing the same fake smile, but it faltered when she saw the papers in my hand. "I know what you did," I said, holding up the screenshots. "I have you on video stealing my package this morning at 9:47 a.m. Her face went through a series of transformations. Confusion, recognition, anger, and then something I had not expected: righteous indignation. "How dare you accuse me of theft?" she said, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "I have lived in this neighborhood for 15 years. I am a respected member of this community. These photos are clearly doctored." She pointed at the screenshots like they were offensive weapons. "You obviously used some kind of computer software to make it look like I was on your property. This is harassment, and I will not stand for it." I could not believe what I was hearing. The evidence was right there in black and white, literally showing her committing a crime, and she was claiming I had fabricated it. "Corinne, I watched you do it in real time. I have video footage from multiple angles. Just give me back my package and we can forget this happened." Her expression turned cold and calculating. "You are making a very serious mistake," she said, stepping closer until she was almost touching me. "I have connections in this community that you cannot imagine. My husband serves on the city council. I know people at the police department, the mayor's office, the county courthouse." She smiled, but there was nothing fake about it this time. It was predatory. "If you continue to harass me with these ridiculous accusations, I will have you evicted from this neighborhood. Do not test me." She slammed the door in my face. I stood on her front porch for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. She had not even tried to deny it after the initial shock. She had simply threatened me into silence. That afternoon, I drove to the local police station with my laptop and printed evidence. The desk sergeant was polite but not particularly interested until I showed him the video footage. "Well, that is pretty clear-cut," he said, watching Karen steal my package for the third time. "Package theft is definitely a crime. How much was the item worth?" When I told him it was about $60, his expression changed. "Unfortunately, anything under $100 is classified as petty theft. It is a misdemeanor that usually results in a citation and a small fine. Most of the time, we do not even pursue cases this small unless there is a pattern of repeated offenses." He handed me a report form to fill out. "You can file a complaint, but honestly, your best bet is to take this to small claims court if you want to recover the value of the item. We will keep this on file in case she gets caught again." I left the police station feeling defeated. Karen had been right about one thing. Her connections mattered more than evidence. That evening, another notification buzzed on my phone. Karen had filed a formal complaint with the HOA, claiming I was stalking and harassing her. She accused me of taking unauthorized photographs of her property and making false accusations that damaged her reputation in the community. The HOA board scheduled an emergency hearing for the following week. Karen would get to present her side of the story first. I was beginning to understand that the system was rigged in her favor. The emergency HOA hearing felt like a trial where I was guilty before I even walked into the room. Karen sat at the head table with the other board members, a thick folder of documents spread in front of her. Her husband, Richard Pemberton, sat in the front row of chairs, his city council pin gleaming on his jacket lapel. Karen presented her case with the skill of a seasoned prosecutor. She claimed I had been stalking her for weeks, taking unauthorized photographs of her daily activities, and spreading malicious rumors about her character throughout the community. "This man has accused me of theft without a shred of credible evidence," she said, her voice trembling with fake emotion. "He has used doctored surveillance footage to try to frame me for crimes I did not commit. This harassment has caused me severe emotional distress and damaged my reputation in a community where I have served faithfully for 15 years." She pulled out medical records from her doctor, claiming my harassment had caused her anxiety and insomnia. She had witness statements from 3 neighbors who said they had seen me lurking around her property with a camera. When it was my turn to speak, I presented the security footage on my laptop. The board members watched without expression as Karen clearly and obviously stole my package in broad daylight. "The evidence speaks for itself," I said. "This is not doctored footage. This is not harassment. This is documentation of a crime that occurred on my property." The board retired to deliberate for 15 minutes. When they returned, the chairwoman delivered their decision with the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. The board finds that while the surveillance footage is concerning, there is insufficient evidence to prove wrongdoing beyond reasonable doubt. However, We also find that the installation of unauthorized surveillance equipment violates community standards and creates an atmosphere of distrust among neighbors. She looked directly at me. You have 30 days to remove all surveillance equipment from your property or face daily fines of $100 until compliance is achieved. Additionally, any further harassment of community members will result in immediate legal action. Karen smiled like she had just won the lottery. The next morning, I met with an attorney who specialized in civil litigation. She reviewed the security footage and agreed that Karen was clearly guilty of theft. The problem, she explained, is that proving it in court will cost you more than recovering the stolen items is worth. We are talking about thousands of dollars in legal fees to recover maybe a few $100s in stolen merchandise. She leaned back in her chair. Even if we win, collecting damages from someone like Corinne Pemberton could take years. People like her know how to hide assets and drag out legal proceedings until you give up. I left her office feeling completely defeated. The police would not help because the dollar amounts were too small. The HOA was clearly protecting Corinne. Civil court would bankrupt me before I recovered a penny. That weekend, Corinne escalated her campaign against me. She filed complaints with the city about my lawn height, claiming it violated municipal ordinances. She reported my dog to animal control, claiming he barked excessively and was not properly licensed. She called the health department about my garbage cans, claiming they attracted rats and violated sanitation codes. Every complaint was false, but each one required me to take time off work to meet with city officials and prove my innocence. Corinne was using the bureaucracy as a weapon, drowning me in paperwork and forcing me to spend hundreds of dollars on legal compliance issues. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in November. I came home to find a certified letter from the Postal Service. Corinne had stolen a package containing my daughter's prescription medication, asthma inhalers that she needed for school. I called the pharmacy in a panic. They could not replace the medication without going through insurance approval again, which would take at least a week. My daughter would have to go without her rescue inhaler because Corinne Pemberton had stolen medical supplies from a child. That night, I sat in my kitchen staring at the security footage of Corinne taking my daughter's medication. The system had failed completely. The police would not act. The courts were too expensive. The HOA was corrupt. The city officials were overwhelmed with Corinne's false complaints. I had tried every legitimate avenue for justice, and all of them had failed me. It was time to get creative. That night, I could not sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, diving deep into internet research about psychological warfare and harmless but memorable pranks. I was not looking to hurt Corinne physically, but I wanted to give her a taste of the terror and helplessness she had been inflicting on me and my neighbors for months. I read case studies about package theft deterrence. Some people used exploding glitter bombs. Others set up fake packages with GPS trackers. One creative homeowner had filled a package with dog waste and left it for thieves to discover. But none of those felt right. I needed something that would expose Corinne's crimes to the entire neighborhood while giving her the scare of her life. Something poetic, something she would never forget. That is when I remembered my college friend Jake Morrison. We had stayed in touch over the years, and I knew he ran a reptile rescue operation outside of town. Jake bred snakes, lizards, and other exotic animals, both for educational programs and for people who wanted unusual pets. I called him the next morning. "I need to borrow a snake," I said without preamble. Jake laughed. Well, that is not something I hear every day. What kind of snake are we talking about, and what exactly do you need it for? I explained the situation. Corinne's months of package theft, the failure of police and courts to provide justice, my plan to give her the shock of her life while exposing her crimes to the entire neighborhood. You want to put a live snake in a fake package and let her steal it, Jake said slowly. That is either brilliant or completely insane. Maybe both, I admitted. But it will not hurt her. I just want to scare her badly enough that she never comes near my property again. Jake was quiet for several minutes, thinking it through. If we are going to do this, we need to do it right, he finally said. First, the snake has to be completely harmless. No venom, no aggressive tendencies, nothing that could actually hurt her even if she panicked. He paused. Second, we need to make sure the snake will be safe. If she drops the box or throws it, I do not want my animal getting injured. What do you have in mind? I asked. Ball python, Jake said immediately. They are docile, beautiful, and impressive looking without being dangerous. I have a 3-footer named Samson who is practically a teddy bear. He has been handled by hundreds of school children during educational programs. We spent the next hour planning every detail. The package had to look legitimate but have hidden ventilation holes so Samson could breathe. The timing had to be perfect, catching Corinne during her usual morning patrol. The reveal had to be dramatic enough to wake up the entire neighborhood. That weekend, I drove out to Jake's property. His house was surrounded by outbuildings that housed dozens of rescued animals. Snakes, lizards, turtles, even a few exotic birds that had been surrendered by owners who could not care for them properly. Jake introduced me to Samson, a gorgeous ball python with golden brown scales and dark chocolate patterns. The snake was incredibly calm, allowing me to hold him while Jake explained his temperament. Ball pythons get their name because they curl up in a ball when they feel threatened, Jake said. Samson here is about as mellow as they come. He has never bitten anyone, never shown aggression, never done anything but eat his mice and sleep in his terrarium. Samson felt surprisingly warm and muscular in my hands, but there was nothing frightening about him. He was actually quite beautiful. He will be perfect, I said. We spent the afternoon designing the perfect package. It had to look like a normal Amazon delivery, complete with realistic shipping labels and tracking numbers. But it also needed hidden ventilation holes and padding to keep Samson safe during the theft and discovery. Jake created a custom cardboard insert that would hold Samson securely while giving him room to move. We disguised the air holes as shipping damage, small tears in the cardboard that would look like rough handling during delivery. The timing was crucial. Corinne's morning routine was predictable. She had coffee at 7, collected her newspaper at 7:30, and began her neighborhood patrol at 8. I needed to place the package early enough that she would see it during her surveillance sweep, but not so early that actual delivery trucks were still making rounds. We scheduled the operation for the following Thursday morning. Jake would deliver Samson at 6 a.m., giving me time to place the package and set up additional camera angles to capture every moment of Corinne's reaction. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked as we loaded Samson into a secure transport container. "Once we do this, there is no going back. Corinne will know exactly who set this up." I thought about my daughter's stolen medication. I thought about all the other neighbors who had been too scared to stand up to Corinne's bullying. I thought about the corrupt system that protected thieves as long as they had the right connections. "I am absolutely sure," I said. "Corinne Pemberton is about to learn that actions have consequences." Thursday morning arrived with crisp autumn air and perfect visibility. I had barely slept, running through the plan over and over in my mind. Jake arrived at my house at exactly 6 a.m. with Samson secured in his custom Amazon package. "Remember," Jake said as we made the final preparations, "Samson is completely harmless, but Karen does not know that. The shock value will be enormous, but she will not be in any actual danger." The package looked perfect. Jake had crafted authentic-looking shipping labels with my name and address. The box was the right size and weight for a typical Amazon delivery. The hidden air holes looked like normal shipping damage. I could hear Samson moving around inside the box, but the sound was so subtle that Corinne would never notice it until she opened the package. At 6:30, I placed the box on my front porch and retreated to my kitchen window. I had cameras positioned at 3 different angles to capture Corinne's approach, the theft, and most importantly, her reaction when she discovered what she had stolen. Corinne's morning routine unfolded exactly as predicted. Coffee at 7, newspaper at 7:30. By 8 a.m., she was standing in her front yard with a mug in one hand and binoculars in the other, scanning the neighborhood for packages to steal. My heart was pounding as I watched her notice the box on my porch. She set down her coffee mug and walked across the street with that same casual confidence I had seen so many times before. She approached my property like she owned it. No hesitation, no guilt, no concern about being watched. This was clearly routine for her, as natural as collecting her own mail. Corinne bent down and picked up the package, testing its weight. She looked left and right to make sure no neighbors were watching, then tucked the box under her arm and walked back to her own house. I held my breath as she carried Samson across the street. Everything depended on what happened next. Corinne walked up her own driveway and set the package down on her front porch. She looked around one more time, then knelt down and began tearing open the tape. This was the moment I had been planning for weeks. I activated all 3 camera angles and started recording on my phone as backup. Corinne opened the first flap of the cardboard box, then the second. She pushed aside the tissue paper padding that Jake had used to keep Samson secure during transport. What happened next exceeded my wildest expectations. Corinne's face went from curiosity to confusion to absolute terror in less than 2 seconds. Samson, who had been coiled peacefully in his custom compartment, suddenly found himself exposed to bright morning sunlight and fresh air. He did what any snake would do. He began to emerge from the box. Corinne's scream was not human. It was pure primal terror, the kind of sound that comes from the deepest part of the brain where rational thought does not exist. She fell backward off her porch, scrambling away from the package like it contained a live bomb. Samson, completely unbothered by the drama, slithered out of the box and onto Corinne's front porch. He was magnificent in the morning sunlight, his golden scales gleaming as he stretched to his full 3-foot length and began exploring his new surroundings. Corinne continued screaming as she ran down her driveway in her pink bathrobe and slippers. Her arms were flailing wildly, her hair was flying in all directions, and her voice was reaching pitches that I did not know were humanly possible. "Snake, snake, there is a snake in MY package." Windows began opening all along Maple Street. Neighbors poured out of their houses to see what was causing the commotion. Dogs started barking. Someone called 911. Corinne reached the middle of the street and turned back toward her house, pointing frantically at her front porch, where Samson was calmly sunning himself on the warm concrete. "It was in a package. Someone put a snake in a package." That was when the beautiful irony of the situation hit everyone at once. Karen had just admitted, in front of the entire neighborhood, that she had opened a package that was not addressed to her. My neighbor Tom, who lived 3 houses down, was the first to put it together. "Karen," he called out, still in his pajamas, "why were you opening someone else's package?" Karen's face went white as she realized what she had just confessed to. She looked around at the growing crowd of neighbors, all of whom were now staring at her with dawning understanding. It was on my porch," she stammered. But everyone could see that the package was clearly on her porch, not delivered there. And everyone could see the torn Amazon shipping label with my name and address clearly visible. Mrs. Chen from next door walked over to examine Samson, who was now coiled peacefully in a sunny spot next to Karen's flower bed. "This is a ball python," she announced to the crowd. "They are completely harmless. My grandson has one as a pet." The police arrived 10 minutes later, followed closely by animal control. The responding officers took one look at the situation and immediately understood what had happened. Karen tried to claim that she had been attacked while checking on a suspicious package, but the evidence told a different story. The shipping label clearly showed my name and address. The torn cardboard and tissue paper were scattered across her front porch. Her own admission that she had opened the package was captured on multiple cell phone videos recorded by neighbors. Officer Martinez, who took the initial report, was having trouble keeping a straight face as he interviewed Karen. "Ma'am, you are saying that you opened a package addressed to your neighbor because you thought it was suspicious." "It could have been dangerous," Karen said weakly. "I was protecting the community." "By stealing it?" Officer Martinez asked. The crowd of neighbors erupted in whispers and knowing looks. This was the confirmation they had all been waiting for. The aftermath of Operation Snake Package unfolded better than I could have ever imagined. Within hours, the entire neighborhood knew the truth about Corinne Pemberton. Cell phone videos of her hysterical confession spread through the community WhatsApp group like wildfire. Animal Control Officer Sarah Jenkins handled Samson with professional expertise, gently coaxing him into a secure transport container, while explaining to the gathered crowd that ball pythons were docile creatures commonly kept as pets. "This little guy is perfectly healthy and completely harmless," she announced. "Whoever planned this knew exactly what they were doing. Ball pythons are probably the safest snake you could use for something like this." Jake arrived shortly after the police to reclaim Samson and provide documentation that the snake belonged to his licensed rescue operation. Officer Martinez took detailed notes as Jake explained how Samson had been borrowed for educational purposes. Karen's 911 call became the stuff of neighborhood legend. The emergency dispatcher released the audio recording to the local news station, and Karen's panicked voice played on repeat across the city. "There is a snake, a huge snake. It was in my package. Someone is trying to kill me with snakes." "Ma'am, can you confirm that the package was addressed to you?" "Well, no, it was not exactly addressed to me, but I was checking on it for security reasons." "So you opened someone else's mail?" "It is not mail, it is a package, and I was protecting the neighborhood." The recording perfectly captured Karen's admission of theft, while she tried to paint herself as a victim. That evening, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. This time, the community center was packed beyond capacity. Neighbors who had never attended a meeting before crowded into every available seat. The energy in the room was electric. For the first time in years, Karen was not sitting at the head table with the other board members. She sat in the back corner, her usual confidence replaced by obvious anxiety. One by one, neighbors stood up to share their own stories of Corinne's theft and harassment. Tom from 3 houses down revealed that Corinne had stolen Christmas presents intended for his grandchildren. Mrs. Patterson described losing prescription medications and having to pay out of pocket for replacements. The young couple from Elm Street talked about missing baby formula deliveries that had caused genuine hardship for their family. The pattern was overwhelming. Corinne had been systematically stealing from her neighbors for at least 2 years, targeting packages that looked expensive or important. Board member Janet Walsh, who had always been one of Corinne's allies, looked genuinely shocked as the stories poured out. "I had no idea this was happening," she said. "If we had known about this pattern of theft, we would have taken action immediately." Richard Pemberton, Corinne's husband, tried to defend his wife one last time. "These are all unsubstantiated accusations," he said. "People are just piling on because they are upset about this morning's incident." That was when I stood up and addressed the room. "I have security camera footage of Corinne stealing packages from my property on multiple occasions," I announced. "Clear, high-definition video that shows her committing theft in broad daylight." I played the footage on my laptop, projecting it onto the wall behind the board table. The room fell silent as everyone watched Corinne casually steal package after package over the course of several weeks. The evidence was undeniable. Corinne Pemberton had been caught red-handed, literally and figuratively. The board voted unanimously to remove Corinne from all HOA positions immediately. They also voted to install community package lockers and implement a neighborhood watch program to prevent future theft. Corinne's resignation letter arrived by certified mail the next morning. It was brief and bitter, claiming that she was the victim of a coordinated harassment campaign and that she could no longer serve a community that had turned against her. 2 months later, the Pemberton house went up for sale. Corinne and Richard moved to a retirement community in Florida, far away from the neighborhood they had terrorized for so many years. The transformation in Willowbrook Estates was remarkable. Without Corinne's constant surveillance and nitpicking, neighbors began talking to each other again. Children played in front yards without fear of violating HOA regulations. Holiday decorations became more creative and joyful. The new HOA board, elected in a special vote, implemented common-sense policies focused on community building rather than rule enforcement. The WhatsApp group evolved from a platform for Corinne's complaints into a genuine communication tool where neighbors shared recommendations, organized events, and looked out for each other. My security cameras, which Corinne had tried so hard to remove, became the model for a voluntary neighborhood security network. Several other residents installed their own systems, and we created a shared monitoring program that actually did prevent package theft and other crimes. Jake visited regularly to check on the community and provide educational programs about reptile safety. Samson became something of a local celebrity, and several neighbors asked about adopting rescue snakes of their own. 6 months after the snake incident, I received a handwritten thank you note from Mrs. Chen. It simply read, "Thank you for having the courage to stand up to the neighborhood bully. You gave us all permission to reclaim our community." Sometimes justice comes through official channels. Sometimes it requires creativity, courage, and a 3-foot ball python named Samson. Either way, it feels pretty good when the system finally works.